Hey everybody, I am Chris and that is Pat, and we are, I'm on the channel, which is a change because Pat has pretty much owned this thing lately, doing some incredible work, breaking down some of the top prospects in the 2022 NFL draft. And we're going to have a chat because it's getting close. We're basically we're posting this about a week away from the draft. Pat, do you feel this is the culmination of all your life's work here coming up next week?
Absolutely, I do. I mean, we're coming to the end here. We've got all the videos wrapped up. I'm like, what am I going to do with myself now? I don't know. I just got to sit back and wait and see what happens with the draft. But
right.
Yeah, it's been fun doing the videos, and I hope everyone's enjoyed them.
Right. So that's first. We're going to encourage you go back, watch some of the top prospect. Most of the certainly, I think everyone that you've done a full breakdown on is going to go in the first couple rounds of the draft next week, and I think most of the receivers you've done are going to go maybe in the first round. So the reason that we do this way, the reason that we break them down before they have teams is that we, for fantasy purposes, don't want to get blindsided by situation, because situations change a lot in the NFL from season to season. And so you've done just yeoman's work, great work. And I want to kind of ask you questions about a couple of the dudes that you've already done videos on. Specifically, I'm going to say independent of landing spot. These guys are going to land where they're going to land. The one player that you've done a video on, one of these elite skill guys that you are most excited for fantasy would be?
I'd have to say Breece Hall. I mean, everybody's always looking for running back help in fantasy. Running back from Iowa State, I'd say he's been the best running back in college football the last 2 seasons. Not only is he a good runner, but he's a good receiver as well. He had over 30 receptions in his junior season, his last season at Iowa State. And so I'm excited about him regardless of landing spot. It seems like he may end up going in the first round. I know some people may feel a certain way about first round running backs, but that's
right.
A possibility for him. And so I think he could step in and make an immediate impact, obviously depending on what carries are available to him and stuff like that. But he is a 3-down back that could definitely be impactful in PPR and catching the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy that is fast, is shifty, has some power to him as well, so and good vision. So he has all those elements that you're looking for in a running back.
All right, so if I've heard the comparison Matt Forte on kind of like the upside for Breece Hall, and anybody who played fantasy, who's old, who played fantasy a while ago, 10 plus years ago, remembers Matt Forte as a pretty great weapon, no matter what league you were in. That would be wonderful. I've also heard an optimistic assessment of him as like Kareem Hunt, which might be a little less interesting for the purposes of PPR, and maybe he needs to be in some kind of platoon. Maybe the difference between those two kinds of running backs is one had that quick twitch thing where they could run outside zone. I mean, Matt Forte with those Bears teams running outside zone was just great vision, great quick twitch, could find a hole and hit it. Kareem Hunt's much more of a gap guy. Do you have a sense between the two paradigms I've kind of falsely just presented you with? Does he fit into one or either one of those?
No, I think those are two interesting comps. And Forte was obviously a really high volume receiver. So it'll depend on how he's utilized, but I do think he is closer to Forte in kind of the way you framed it, in terms of having that twitch and being able to run outside zone and having the vision to find the cutback lane and burst through it. And I think he is capable of doing that, and so I'd put him closer to Forte.
So, in other words, I should stop comparing him to David Montgomery because they both went to Iowa State. Done. Not going to do it anymore. All set. We're good. How about another one? The maybe second most exciting guy for fantasy. You can't wait to see where he lands.
A receiver that I'm really excited about is Jameson Williams. Now, he does have the ACL injury.
Sure.
So it may not be this season. He probably won't be ready for the start of the season, and may take some time to get going, but in the 2023 season, I feel like he could make a big time impact. And if he didn't have that ACL injury, we're probably talking about him being drafted. We're already talking about him being drafted maybe in the top 10. So if he didn't have the ACL injury, he's probably at, in the Jamar Chase range of draft types. Now, I'm not of where he would be drafted. I'm not saying he's going to be Jamar Chase. I think, this receiver class as a whole, I think is really deep, is really good. It's really hard to differentiate the top guys because they're all really good. But still, I would take Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle over anyone in this class. But to get back on track with Jameson Williams, just elite speed, super fast and super twitchy, and the ability to elude defenders, and a good route runner too on deep balls. Just a deep ball specialist that is going to make big plays. He had 9 receptions of 50 or more yards in his last season, his one season at Alabama, and the last guy, or I got to check the stat, but I believe it was the only guy to do it in the last 10 years was Jamar Chase, to have that many 50-plus yard receptions. And so Williams is just that big-time playmaker that can explode at any time. So I'm really excited to see where he ends up and how he can recover from that ACL.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're not expecting – he hurt himself in the national championship game. We're not expecting huge things right away. Can I just tell you that when somebody goes, I love Jameson Williams, I mean, he's the next Deshaun Jackson, I go, oh, wait, what? That's not good. Is that a good thing? If he's Deshaun Jackson, to me, that would be disappointing.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think you hope that he's more of a complete player than Jackson was or is.
Is he? I mean, is he better than Deshaun Jackson? Deshaun Jackson's speed merchant, super dangerous for fantasy in his prime, would get you 6 games, 5 games that were amazing, but you never knew when they were coming, and there were 10 bad games in there. Is Jameson Williams healed with an ACL? Is he better than that?
I think he can be better than that.
Okay.
I mean, we'll have to see how he heals, but I think he can be. I think he has the quickness to get off press and a little bit more strength than maybe his frame would indicate. And so I think he can be more than that, more than just the, hey, run a go route and throw it to you and let you run under it.
Right. All right. So we're going to get back in a second, and I'm going to ask Pat for some sleepers, for some fantasy sleepers in this draft. I just want to thank DraftKings for continuing to sponsor the channel. They're a great partner. First of all, DraftKings Sportsbook, you can make NFL draft wagers. So if you're interested in the topic of the day, absolutely go do that. Plus, if you're watching the NBA playoff, you kind of want to have that extra little juice. You can play the NBA playoffs at DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you're new to DraftKings, you can bet $5 on any team to win outright and get $150 in free bets instantly. You win no matter what. They've also got same game parlays. And of course, they've got DFS contests all playoffs long. If you're not at DraftKings at this point, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use our code. Please do use that code. It's HarrisTube. It is fun. You get a great offer, $5 to win $150 in free bets. It's something else. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring and supporting sponsors of things that you like. Good policy in general. They'll keep supporting the thing that you like. All right. So, Pat, I'm going to get you away from the guys that you've done the film breakdown on for the channel, and instead start asking you about some, I think we're going to say probably mid-round NFL draft picks who could be smart dynasty picks if you're in the, maybe first or second round of your dynasty draft, or just generally speaking for redraft could wind up perking up. Let's start with a running back that you haven't talked about yet who you're intrigued by.
I think one interesting guy is Tyler Algier from BYU. I mean, just tremendous production at BYU. Was tied for the lead in the nation with 23 touchdowns, 1,600 rushing yards, averaged almost 6 yards per carry. And I think he's kind of like maybe a James Conner type, like a bigger back that can run people over and run with some power, but also has really good vision, especially with inside and outside zone. So I think could be interesting to see where he falls and if he can kind of climb up the depth chart and maybe make an impact at some point in the next couple of years.
Yeah, like a walk-on kid, a try-hard guy, sort of made good. The question's going to be about athleticism, right? But you're right. Like for the purposes of fantasy, if you tell me, oh, there's a James Conner type available and you're going to be able to get him in the second round of your dynasty draft, if you're telling me I get touchdowns, that's interesting to me. How about another running back?
Yeah, another running back I think is Sincere McCormick from UTSA. I did some game analysis in Conference USA in the fall. Got to see him a couple of times, and he's going to be a guy lower down the draft, maybe like 6th round, somewhere in that area. But he's intriguing to me. He reminds me a little bit of Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones is a guy that was a 5th rounder out of UTEP. Texas El Paso, ended up going to the Packers and obviously making a huge fantasy impact. And they're both, Texas guys from small schools, similar size, 5'9", 210-ish, similar speed, in the 4.5 range and the 40. And McCormick has some power to him. He can lower the shoulder and bounce off some tackles. And he shows some vision at times. I think that's the one question with him is, can he be a little bit more decisive? And I think if he can be, he's an intriguing guy that I think could develop into something down the road.
Yeah, that size is the one thing that's going to put you off and say, oh, well, is he ever really a feature back? But, I know that probably, I think we talked about Devin Singletary a couple years ago when he was coming out. I mean, maybe he's a decent comp. I'd obviously rather have him be Aaron Jones. That would be great. But he is going to go late, so somebody to think about for later in dynasty drafts. Among receivers, you wanted to make sure that we talk about Justin Ross, which is really interesting because, Matt Waldman, who comes on my podcast, I think he has him a top 5 receiver in the whole draft. If Justin Ross had been draft eligible a couple of years ago, he would be going a lot higher than he's going to go in this draft.
Absolutely. A couple of years ago, he was being talked about as a future first-round pick. Yeah. His freshman year at Clemson, they won the national championship. He led Clemson in receiving. And on the other receivers on that roster were T. Higgins, Amari Rodgers, and Hunter Renfrow, all guys that are, maybe Rodgers isn't making a fan impact, but all guys that are on NFL rosters. Sure. And so that's impressive. He did that as a freshman, and then he missed the entire 2020 season because he had this rare spinal issue and he had to have surgery. But he came back from that, played in 2021, and the Clemson offense really struggled in 2021. They couldn't get him the ball very much. A lot of off-target throws in his direction, so he didn't quite have the production, but he's a guy that's 6'4", over 200 pounds, has the athleticism. He's just really intriguing, and he's kind of fallen down the board because of the injury and the lack of production in his last season.
So we're going to keep an eye on for Justin Ross for sure. And then Paul Portese, also a regular podcast guest, and he has your last guy here, as a top 10 wide receiver in this draft. And this dude is not going to go in the top 10. He's an interesting little player, but he's not going to go that high.
I don't think he'll go that high. He may be like a third round type of guy, but Wan'Dale Robinson from Kentucky started his year at Nebraska, and he played both running back and wide receiver at Nebraska. So because of that, of course, now everyone wants to compare him to Deebo Samuel. He's going to be Deebo. He's not Deebo Samuel. He's smaller, a lot smaller than Deebo. He's like 5'8", 175, 180, which is kind of funny because Kentucky listed him at like 5'11", 190 or something like that. So it kind of shows you what schools can do sometimes. But anyway, so he's a smaller guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, but he's really got that suddenness to him. He can stop on a dime and change direction really quickly. He's got some speed, 4.4 speed, I believe. So he can be an intriguing slot option that can make some big plays potentially and could be a gadget guy on jet sweeps and different things like that.
All right. Well, we have now some names both to target early in dynasty drafts or really focus on when they land with NFL teams, and maybe even more importantly, some sleepers for your dynasty rookie drafts who are not going to probably go in the first round of your dynasty rookie draft, but could well be worth picking anyway. So you and I are going to be joined at the hip here for a couple of weeks because you're going to come on the podcast next week, and then we'll be back on the YouTube show to summarize some of the landing spots as we get post-draft. Again, wonderful job throughout the draft season. Thank you for tutoring me. I know I watch them all and learn a lot. I love your film breakdowns. It's fantastic. Thank you all for watching, and remember DraftKings, code HarrisTube. It's wonderful when you do support the sponsors. We'll be back here very soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and please leave us a message. Let us know what you think of some of these prospects. Thanks so much for watching. Please, please, please smash that like button, write a comment, tell us who else you'd like to see us review film on, and of course, best of all, please subscribe to our channel and then click that little bell above the subscribe button and you'll be notified whenever we post a new video.